Hi, and welcome back to the Count to 10 podcast. I decided that this podcast is going to kind of be a little bit of a do-over because I presented some things at school to some of my staff that I work with, and they were kind of new ideas that I was kind of excited about that I just kind of decided to kind of present for some professional development, and it wasn't as planned out and structured as I would like to because I did kind of just decide to change that up at the last minute, which those kind of things happen. So I was thinking, oh man, I'm kind of bummed that both of the sessions that I had were kind of like haphazard and not as intentional as I like to present information, especially information that's important to me. So I was thinking, just like Back to the Future, when Marty is in the car and he's like, no, I didn't get to tell Doc that, when he gets back, the terrorists kill him and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wait a second, I can do a do-over. I'll just represent it as I want to in the podcast. So, and it's probably good information for everybody. So that's what we're doing. I am going to walk through the ideas I was hoping to kind of present in a better way from this week, and then have a couple ideas and suggestions for you for teachers, and we'll be finished up. So the main focus of what I want to talk about today is our pursuit of happiness. And the reason why this information or this idea kind of struck me was I was listening to a podcast called We Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle. And I was just kind of surprised when these people were talking about happiness and how it drives Americans in particular, but most people, this desire that you need to be happy all the time. And it just kind of struck me that it was kind of flabbergasted when I heard it going, oh, wow, we really do. That's all we think about. How can we be happy? What can I do? People self-medicate to be happy. People do all kinds of stuff to be happy, good and bad. But to hear these people talk about this was really interesting. So the main person who was on there, her name was Dr. Laurie Santos. And she was the dean of the College of Psychology, or is the dean of psychology at Yale University, which is a pretty prestigious place. And what she found out was that she works in this College of Psychology at Yale. She works with all the students that are part of that college. And she found out that 40% of her students that she worked with said they felt like they were too depressed to function a lot of the time. 60% said that they were overwhelmed with anxiety on a regular basis. And 1 out of 10 had seriously considered suicide. So she thought, holy cow, how many red flags do you need? That's pretty big. And I think you could probably, she didn't say this, but maybe you could extrapolate that to our societies like that, right? Suicides increased since we've been isolated and away from each other due to COVID and the lockdown. So it has had an effect on us when it comes to our makeup, as human beings. And some of these things are not in our control, and it's kind of important to know that we don't have to be doing certain things. So in this podcast that I listen to, again, I'll probably try to put some links if I can. Not good at that yet, but I'll do my best to her podcast. It's wonderful. But what this doctor decided to do, Dr. Santos, she decided to do a class. And the class is called Psychology and the Good Life, which is a great name. And she kind of did it on a whim, thinking, some of her students that she works with would show up. They had to move it to one of their, like a stadium outdoor area or something, or like a bigger venue, let's put it that way, because almost a quarter of the population of Yale signed up for the class. So another big flag, right, of, whoa, it's not just one person, and what a benign kind of name, Psychology and the Good Life. People were like, whoa, I need to get the good life. Let's go to this class. So something obviously was going on there. So the podcast in this class, it sounds like, really focuses on our concepts and understanding of what happiness is. So we often find things to make us happy, right? We have a new job, relationships, I list iPhone, whatever it is, right? Something new and exciting. Those things make us happy, but it doesn't last, right? And I think we all kind of know that. Part of that is that the brain adapts, and they called it in this podcast hedonic adaptation. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. Hedonic adaptation, and that is everybody's brain does it. So for good and bad things, it just shows you how resilient the brain is. That when things are bad and not going well, and they're consistent, after a while you just gotta get used to it, and it actually shows how resilient our brain is to kind of be able to push past things and be persistent and follow through, that grit kind of thing that we often talk about as parents and teachers. So the brain really has some amazing functions to kind of keep us moving forward and keep us, alive and surviving. So it's really interesting to understand that our brains kind of get used to stuff. So what she kind of talked about was, think about the first time you heard the word like mommy, or you heard the word daddy, or the first time something, very like, for me, mind-blowing kind of that, you become a father or you become a parent. And she said, that's wonderful at first, right? And then after a while, hey, mommy, hey, daddy, those all, happening all the time, drives you crazy. And so it just shows that's an example of how the brain kind of just gets used to things, right? It's lost its special glow of being called daddy over and over again, if you've heard it, a gazillion times. So that was kind of the idea, the hedonic adaptation, which I thought was kind of amazing. Then she talked about how ancients, like the Greeks, right? Socrates and those guys, they studied happiness. We've been doing this for a long time as human beings, trying to understand what is happiness and how do you get it and why are we trying to achieve it. And so the Greeks were into Stoicism, right? And so to be a Stoic is kind of like indifferent, but you're indifferent to everything. You're indifferent to pleasure, to pain, you're indifferent to fortune, or whatever it is. And so they were trying to find ways to kind of get themselves out of this mode of driving after happiness or trying to find happiness. And what they started doing, and it sounds really kind of the opposite of what I thought meditation was, but they would meditate for 5 minutes, and they would meditate on losing their job, losing their spouse, losing their place in life. Like, something horrible happens to you. And focusing on those things for 5 minutes. And then when none of those things happened, it was relief. And with that relief, it came with this like elation. And so it was something that you could kind of count on. So you really have to go and listen to the podcast and see, kind of, I'm doing an okay job of giving you a broad idea of what it was about. But she really gets into some of the ancients and how they were working on these kind of things too. So what to do? So we should not be trying to be happy all the time. That's not how we work, and it's not what we should be doing. So it's so important to know that you don't have to be happy all the time, and nor should you be happy all the time. We are on this continuum where we have these ups and downs, and that's kind of how our brains and our bodies work, right? We're not used to just sitting on the couch and chilling all the time and watching TV. We know the effects of that. So we're used to these ups and downs. Our brains are too. So our brains know that we're not going to be happy all the time, that we shouldn't be happy all the time. But we do have that negative bias, right? So we want to be aware of it. We don't want to be down in the dumps all the time. So she gave a really good example of people who are winning the gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal in the Olympics. So it's kind of like following expectations, right? The gold medalist, it's the greatest day of their life. The silver medalists, often these silver medalists will say it's the worst day of their lives to have come in second at the Olympics. Then they talk to bronze medal winners, and this is some study, right? This is all data filled, so I like it. They talked to the bronze medalists. All of them, it was the greatest day of their lives because as far as they were concerned, most of them said, man, I was a couple seconds away from not even being on the podium, let alone trying to get a gold medal or a silver medal. I'm glad I'm here, right? So setting those expectations are really, really important. And I think that that's a big thing I really feel like that's one thing I fall back on a lot, and maybe to a detriment in some way. But I really try to have no expectations. I want to do things for other people because it makes me feel good. That's how I approach it. So there's not a lot of expectation there for me. So I found a book, a friend of mine, one of my associates gave me a book that had these cool quotes on it. I tore it all up, or cut it all up, and laminated it and just put it all in the teachers' boxes that I work with. And I just did it because I thought, man, if they have this on their desk, maybe they'll look at it someday and be like, oh, that's a nice little paragraph or whatever it was, or picture or saying or whatever it was. That to me, the idea of them, the picturing them, seeing it in their box or seeing it sitting on their desk, or something, and having a smile on their face, that makes me full of joy. Like it just fills me with joy. So that's why I do it. And I don't, it's kind of the assumption, right? I think this thing is going to work so great. Maybe they aren't going to smile. Maybe they throw it in the trash can. But that's what brings me happiness, is the idea that, or the hope that I'm giving somebody else a smile, because people give me smiles all the time. So I feel like I'm just kind of have this well that I can kind of tap into, and it's always full and it's always available, and I love dishing it out. So the expectation thing's not an issue, but I think we often do that. We often expect things from people when we do them for them. So shifting your expectations to kind of like lower it a little bit, so you're not putting yourself in this agonizing position when you don't have to be. So expectations. And then they talked about, I talked about the ups and downs of how the brain's kind of supposed to work. So then what they talked about too, the ancients as well as this doctor, is, are you good in your life, or are you good with your life? And so being good in your life is kind of like, do you have that good balance? Do you have your ups and downs, and it's nothing too crazy, and you are kind of in the middle, but you're not flatlining, you're going up and down like your brain's supposed to, and you know that you're not supposed to be happy all the time. Do you have a good balance in that? That is, how are you in your life? The other one is, how are you with your life? Centers more around kind of like, are you satisfied with where you are at as a person? And she said that overall, that's the more important of the two, because they kind of seem similar in some ways. And they probably do have some bleed over. But are you happy with your life? Really has to do with how you are on the inside. And that kind of leads me to my next idea about this when it comes to us and students. The data that's out there says we have to be doing things physically to keep our brains healthy. So, these are all clinically proven things. This is all data driven, of course. But it's common wisdom, but it's difficult common practice. That's kind of what we find ourselves in. I know I should be working out more, or running, or doing athletic things, and I find myself doing other stuff. So there's definitely, there's a practice and a habitual aspect of it that I'm not good at yet. So I'm still working on that. But happier people socialize more. They have lots of friends. They have lots of friends they do hobbies with. They get out of their house and they do stuff. Those are happier people. Doing things for others, right? I'm a pretty happy guy. I think it's part of it is I like doing stuff for other people. It really fills me up all the time. And that mindset of like gratitude, right? Knowing even when things are really bad, you can sit back and you can go, oh wait, I can pull a couple positive things out of the air that I know that are good right now. Even if everything seems to be going south, you can find something. We do it as behavior teachers, as behavior associates too. Sometimes you have to find the smallest little thing to give a positive prompt to, because everything else is terrible. Hey, thanks for, pushing your chair in today, or when you went to lunch, or something. You have to find something, right? So, having that mindset of gratitude is really good. And presence, that mindset of presence, being here and being available. And I'll kind of talk about that more in a sec here. And then finding time to be outside. Right now, we've been just freezing ourselves to death here in Iowa. So it's really cold outside. And you can really bundle up, but it's still not that enjoyable. But trying to get outside in nature is a big one, right? Get outside in the trees. If you can, no cars, go to a park, lose yourself kind of somewhere. That has an effect on you, because that's where you're really supposed to be. As animals in this kingdom of this planet, we're supposed to be outside, not stuck in buildings all day long. So you can kind of see how that works and why that would be important. And don't work yourself into the ground. Don't try to find happiness. It's kind of like finding happiness in things. Don't try to find happiness, don't kill yourself for 51 weeks a year just so you can have that 1 week that's enjoyable in Mexico. This is what the Dr. Santos was talking about. Find joy throughout your year, and then then you can really celebrate that week. Or do you even need the week because you've got everything else locked up? You don't have to escape your life in any way? I don't know. But try to be mindful of those things. So going back to what we talked about a second ago about a mindset of presence. So this is where I kick into kind of like teachers and students, and it could definitely be parents and kids. Presence is super important, right? But why don't we have that presence? We have too many things going on all around us and in our heads. All we can really control, for the most part, would be the things that are in our heads. So I can kind of change my environment sometimes. But I need to make sure that I'm present when I'm having conversations or I'm interacting with my students or my kids. So, we really need to be teaching them how to be human beings. So we're teaching them math, we're teaching them reading, we're teaching them writing, fantastic. We need to teach them how to be people. And it's going to be a lot less difficult to teach them if we are present in the moment, right? And I think that teaching that emotional regulation, it's part of behaviors, right? It's part of behaviors, it's part of reaction, it's part of impulsivity, is reacting to things because we're not connecting our feelings with what's happening around us. So if I have a student who's just kind of refusing to follow the classroom rules, right? I've asked them 3 or 4 times to be quiet or something. And I just keep saying, please stop, or now you're in trouble, you have to stand and have lunch with me or something, I don't know. I'm not being very proactive, right? And I'm not being very present. I'm just kind of like doling out punishment for, the antecedent gets a consequence kind of thing. You're going to have a better connection with kids and their feelings and them doing what they should be doing in class with what's the why behind this. So we don't throw our pencil up in the air. Okay, please stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Right? Okay, I've asked you too many times. Stop doing that. Now you're in trouble. What would be better is, hey Tom, can you do me a favor? Can you not toss your pencil? Do you know why I'm asking you that? Do you know why I don't want you to toss your pencil? No. Well, if you're tossing your pencil like that, just anything could happen and it might hit somebody, right? And so please don't throw your pencil because I don't want anybody to be hurt, and also you, right? So I get them to connect with what I'm thinking about, right? I want this classroom safe. I want you safe, right? That's why I'm redirecting you. And I'm associating his behavior with those around him, right? His small community at this table, and this, the small community in this school, following these rules. That's what it's about. We got to get people to connect to the feelings, so then they see themselves as part of a bigger whole. Well, and I don't want to hurt somebody around me, so yeah, I'll stop doing that, right? It's not always that easy, right? But that's the idea, is to get them to connect those feelings with what's going on and why you want them to do it. We can't just keep telling people to stop doing something without helping them figure out what's going on in my head so that I can make better choices, right? And getting those feelings and those thoughts really helps. Going back to you being present in those moments, right? That matters. And what brings you more presence and more moments? It's being centered, right? And again, I harp on this all the time. Meditation is the best way to do it. And I mean that is in a practice of meditation. So you learn how to set aside thoughts because you have them the whole time. I never meditate without a thought popping in my head every 5 seconds. That's the practice though, right? Once I realize I'm thinking about something and I want to be counting my breath so I am present, then it changes everything and I'm more aware, right? So then if I'm practicing that on a regular basis and I kind of make it my day, and as I'm getting ready to teach math, I start counting my breaths to 10 and find myself centered. And then as things come up, or as I'm having difficulty with something or behavior, or a group of people over here aren't getting what I'm talking about, I've got to have to double down on them and see if I can get them to get caught up. I can do that easier and better if I'm more mindful and I have that practice as part of my daily moment to moment when I have the chance. And I'm not talking about not thinking. My wife gives me a hard time sometimes. She's like, so you don't think about anything? And I'm like, no, it's thinking about things, but it's not letting your thinking just go way off in the deep end, right? That causes more anxiety because you're worrying about the future. Or you go way off the deep end because you're thinking about stuff in the past, right? And there's a bunch of regret and a bunch of things back there. I'm not here. I'm not present. I'm 2 other places, and I don't want to. That's where I don't want to be when I'm interacting with somebody, especially if I'm trying to change things in a classroom or in my house, right, with my family. So being able to be present is really important. So Headspace, fantastic app. Waking Up app, my favorite. Sam Harris, there's the Calm app, and I'm sure there's a ton more of those apps out there. Just do it for 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. Do it for 5 minutes, one time a day, and see how difficult it is, Anything new is kind of hard, but it's kind of exciting. And knowing that the data shows that you can increase brain function 50%, that's incredible all by itself. It makes me more present when I'm with my spouse or my students or my kids. Sounds like a bonus to me. What's 5 minutes, right? And you kind of you figure it out. You go, okay, so this is something that's easy to do. I can just jump in and be more mindful. It doesn't solve every problem. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm now some meditation guru guy. I just keep seeing it open windows and doors for me when it comes to my communication with people and how I interact in the world. It is such a liberating feeling. Kind of like when I heard about this happiness podcast. It was just kind of like, oh, so yeah, we really are striving for happiness all the time. And if we're not, something's wrong with us. You don't want to be happy? What's wrong with you, right? That's how our society kind of runs. So that's pretty much it for today. I guess it's the longest one I've done so far, so I hope I didn't talk too fast. If I did, I'm sure someone will say something to me. But, that first part of that about the happiness, I did feel relieved. I did feel a little bit of relief thinking, okay, I don't have to be doing this all the time. I don't have to be striving for this all the time, right? And I can do a better job of teaching that to my students and to my kids, right? If I'm sad about something, I don't just sit and eat cookies all day long, right? I figure out what's going on. Why am I sad? What can I do to change it? Walk through some things, connect with it, right? So then I can kind of start moving past it. So that's a much bigger, more important skill to teach somebody. If you have any questions for me, email me, Simon, SYMON, Sanborn @gmail.com. Email any questions, any ideas that you might have or suggestions that I can share with people. I'd love to do that. If you have specific problems, I can generalize and walk through it on a podcast pretty easy. And I'm sure if somebody's dealing with an issue with a behavior, there's somebody else out there who's probably dealing with the same kind of issues or behavior. So addressing one would be helping more than one person. So that'd be awesome too. So please feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I don't read the comments. I don't even know how many of these have been downloaded or looked at this point. I'm just doing it because I think it's a good opportunity to kind of share some ideas and some thinking. And I know that we're struggling with a lot of these things right now. So it's important to me to try to give back. It's super important. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. This is a long one. So have a great night. Take care of each other.